All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to walk through, step by step, how you would actually build a modern voice AI business from scratch. And we're going to use let's just say a very compelling example to break down the tech, the strategy, and the real costs. So let's start with this. A bit of a provocative question, right? Could you, right now from your laptop, build a 24/7 AI that works as a tireless debt collector? I know, it sounds a little bit like sci-fi, but with the tools available today, it's way more realistic than you might think. We're going to use this idea as our case study to see what it really takes. Okay, so put yourself in the founder's shoes. You've got the idea, an automated voice AI debt collection agency, and boom, right out of the gate, you are hit with your first and honestly, your most critical decision. This choice is going to shape everything, your costs, your capabilities, and how fast you can even get this thing up and running. And that choice, it really boils down to two main paths you can take. On one side, you have these all-in-one platforms. They're all about simplicity, getting you started fast. On the other side, you have what's called a modular stack. This is where you pick and choose your own components. It's the classic trade-off, really. Simplicity versus power. So let's check out that easy path first. These all-in-one platforms, you've probably heard of some of them, like Tidio, Chatbase, or GPT bots. They are built for people who aren't coders. They've got these cool visual builders, templates, the promise you can get a working AI agent built in just a couple of hours. And you know what? For a simple little chatbot on a website, they're absolutely fantastic. But, and this is a huge but for our AI debt collector, there's a massive problem. These platforms, they're built for text. They live in chat windows. They have no idea how to handle a phone call. They can't listen to a real human voice and talk back in real time. They are missing the single most important piece for our business, a voice. Now, you might be thinking, what about some of the more advanced builders like BotPress? Well, they try. They really do. But to get voice working, you have to start bolting on other services, like Twilio. And all of a sudden, you're not just clicking buttons anymore. You're buying phone numbers, you're configuring them, you're juggling multiple API keys, setting up these complicated webhooks, and that whole promise of easy, it just completely falls apart. You basically end up doing all the hard work that a modular approach is designed for anyway. So after seeing how limited those all-in-one platforms are, our smart founder decides to go the modular route. And okay, this is where it gets really fun, because now we get to be the mechanic. We get to assemble our AI, piece by powerful piece. You know, when you break it down, a modular stack really only has two main parts. First, you need the mouth and ears. This is the piece that actually handles the phone call. It listens to what the person says, and it speaks back. That's your voice front end. And second, you need the brain. This is the part that does the thinking, makes decisions, and plugs into all your other systems. That's your automation back end. For the mouth and ears, there are really two big players right now, Vapy and Retail AI. So Vapy is very developer-centric. It gives you this incredible fine-tuned control over everything, but the pricing can get kind of complicated. Then you've got Retail AI on the other side of the coin. It's really made for business builders, the whole focus on easy setup and, this is key, predictable pricing. Okay, now for the brain. This is where things get really interesting. You could go with something like Make.com. It's super visual, it connects to thousands of different apps right out of the box. Or you could use N8N. This is an open source powerhouse that you can actually host yourself, which gives you maximum power and potentially huge cost savings. And believe me, this choice will have a massive impact on your agent's abilities and what it costs you in the long run. And that, of course, brings us to the one thing every founder has to face, the reality check. We're talking about money. The true cost of running one of these voice AIs is almost always hidden behind some flashy, low number. And if you don't look closer, it can absolutely sink your business before you've even made your first call. So let's use Vapy as an example here. You go to their website and you see a price like 5 cents a minute. You think, wow, that's incredible. I can have my AI making calls all day for pennies on the dollar. But yeah, that's not the whole story. It's not even close. See, that 5 cents, that's just Vapy's fee for being the orchestra conductor. It's the fee for coordinating everything. It doesn't actually include the cost of the musicians, the essential services that do the actual work. You still have to bring your own, pretty much everything else. So what are we talking about here? What are these hidden costs? Well, first, you got to pay for the actual phone line from someone like Twilio. Then you have to pay for the AI's voice. That's a text-to-speech service like ElevenLabs. Then you have to pay for the actual intelligence, the large language model like GPT-4o. And you have to pay for a transcription service like DeepGram to turn their speech back into text for the AI. It's not just the cost, it's a management nightmare. You're juggling invoices from 5, maybe 6 different vendors. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out perfectly. Look at this. For Vapi, the platform fee is that tiny 5 cents. But then you start adding up all those other required services, telephony, the voice, the transcription, the LLM, and your actual cost per minute jumps up to around 30 cents. That's 6 times the advertised price. Now look at retail AI. They bundle all of that stuff together into one all-inclusive rate. That changes the entire game. You're moving from cost complexity to cost predictability. So, okay, the big takeaway here is understanding how all these different pieces click together. Now that we've seen the parts and we understand the real costs, we can actually map out the final blueprints for our AI debt collector. And there are basically 4 distinct paths you can go down. All right, so this table basically shows you the 4 main recipes you can cook up. If you combine retail AI with Make.com, that's going to be the absolute easiest way to get a prototype up and running fast. At the total opposite end, you have Vapi plus NAN. That's for a serious tech team that wants maximum customization and doesn't mind the complexity. And as you can see, each of these combinations has a very clear trade-off between how easy it is to set up, how predictable your costs are, and just the raw power you get. But for our person, right, our automation-savvy business builder, the one who wants to build a real, scalable business and needs that perfect balance of power and price, well, when you look at all the data, one option clearly stands out from the rest. The winner, the optimal stack, is Retail AI plus N8N. And it's a no-brainer when you look at it. Here's why. Retail AI gives you that predictable, all-inclusive price for the entire voice part of the equation, so there are no surprise bills. Then, by self-hosting the N8N brain, you completely eliminate those per-operation fees that can absolutely crush you once you start to scale up. This combo is the sweet spot. You get all the power you need, but you stay in complete control of your costs. You know, we started this whole thing with a kind of wild idea, an AI debt collector working 24/7. And we've seen that not only is it possible, but there's a really clear, really cost-effective blueprint for how to do it. The hardest parts of voice AI have now been simplified. They've been packaged up into tools that builders can actually use. So the final question isn't really about the technology anymore. It's about imagination. What will you build?